What is up, sports geeks? It's your host, Josh, here back with another College Hoops episode, joined by Nick. As always, Nick, pleasure having you on. Happy MLK Day as we're recording this. So this will be posted on either Tuesday or Wednesday this week, but being recorded on Monday here. So two big teams I want to highlight here to start. Let's start with the Auburn Tigers because the two teams here, Auburn and Michigan State, both teams just rolling through conference play. And Auburn's been a pretty common, we've been talking about them a lot here, but obviously the John Broome injury is one that we were really concerned about, right? How are they going to respond without having your, unanimous All-American, power forward? And they've responded spectacularly, right? You have two ranked matchups, Mississippi State, Georgia, one of them being on the road at Georgia. And you have Baker Mazzara and Tahad Pettiford just take over games and put all of the weight on their back and win these games. And now you'd like to think, I haven't seen any updates, but I think that John Broome is probably going to be back for this Tennessee game. This Auburn Tiger team has hung on and actually probably looked even better. I mean, you're beating Mississippi State by 20. That's a spectacular when they dominated that game. I just want to get your thoughts here on this Auburn Tigers team without John Broome.
Yeah, I mean, like we brought up last week, they were going to have to find some guys to come off this bench and really score, take over, and go get the bucket because they don't have a guy like John Broome to go do it. And who did we bring up right away? It was Todd Pettiford. Mm-hmm. And look what he did in his last two games. He's been on fire. He's shooting 50% from the field. He went 5 of 7 from deep on the road in a very hostile environment against Georgia. He put up 24 points off the bench, was their leading scorer by 11 points. This team is so resilient. They keep finding ways to win. I think it's a really good credit to not only this group, but to Bruce Pearl, because Bruce Pearl is a hell of a coach. He knows how to fire his guys up, instill that confidence in him to show them, like, look, you might not be this All-American type player like Pettiford. You might be a freshman, undersized freshman. You're coming off the bench, but he has instilled that confidence into Pettiford. Now he's basically doing exactly what we said somebody needed to do it. Get that confidence, build it up, because guess what? He's coming off the bench. He's going to give you 24 off the bench and night in, night out. Yeah, I mean, you're going to be damn near unstoppable to beat. And you look at them, they're 17-1, 5-0 in conference. They got a big one this Saturday against Tennessee, but most teams that we've seen so far have went in and lost at Georgia, struggled like Kentucky, got dominated. Auburn battled the whole game. They started off the game up 24-8. Yeah. I mean, and then they went up 32 to 14. Like they were controlling the whole first half. And then they battled a little bit and they still came out with a win. And I think that's all you can ask for on the road when you don't have your AP All-American. So, I mean, I think if Auburn can get him back on Saturday, I see no problem with them winning that game.
Yeah. No, I would agree. And I think, to your point here, you're on the road and you start off spectacularly, right? But then Georgia throws punches, right? The place is rocking. You need to get a bucket. It's late in the second half. You need to get a bucket. And Tahad Pettiford is there as a true freshman, is there to give you a bucket. So I think that's the one thing that really stands out to me. He's not – it's not like he's playing 36 minutes like Cooper Flagg is, right? He's playing mid-20 minutes. And he's giving you good, efficient, productive minutes. And that's something that I think is really positive for Todd Pettiford. He is not somebody that is shy of the moment at all. He is he seeks out, being the guy that's going to take the big shot.
Yep.
But he doesn't force it. And I think that's a great balance that he has. And this Auburn Tigers team, I think in the long run, for sure, I know we mentioned this 2 weeks ago when Broome got injured, is in the long run, or last week when he got injured, this is going to help them. Right? When you have Baker Mazzara saying, hey, we need you to put up 20 this game.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Okay. He does it. Okay. Sweet. Hey, Todd Pettiford, we need you to put up 20 this game. Okay. You do it. Right? You immerse them into these difficult environments where they likely will fail, and then you can rebound from that. So I think this is just going to help them a lot. If John Broome is back on Saturday, I really like their chances against Tennessee. But this Auburn Tigers team, I mean, nobody's trying to discredit them. They're a great team. I don't think anybody's sitting here saying, no, I'm disagreeing with what you're saying. They're not a great team. So let's head over to Michigan State, because this team was not necessarily hyped up to be what they are at all. I think they were picked to finish 7th in the Big Ten Conference, between that 6th to 9th probably. And they have some weird transfers coming in, right? Shimon Zapala coming over from Longwood. You have Frankie Fiddler coming in over from University of Nebraska, Omaha. Two kind of weird transfers coming in, but you don't know how they're going to fit. And this team has been great, right? I mean, you look at everything that they're doing. They have one player averaging double figures in Jaden Akins, and everybody else scores.
Yep.
You have 9 guys that you play that could all put up, 7 points. And
Hmm.
when you do that, now you're at 63 points, assuming somebody gets, 10 this game or something. You're going to be scoring 70 a game, which is exactly what they're doing. And they play great defense as well. This Michigan State team is very fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean, at the beginning of the year, we talked about it, and I remember when we were getting ready to do one of our first shows, I was like, it's kind of weird to me that Michigan State's that deep down the list of teams that could win this Big Ten.
Mhm.
I'm like, yes, they brought back a lot. I mean, they're also not a team that has a lot of big name guys, but we're seeing it now. You look into college football right now. You don't need a lot of big name guys if you're a team oriented, program like Notre Dame is. And
Mhm.
that's exactly what I see in this Michigan State Sparty team. Is they're not. You don't have guys that are going to get picked in the first round of the NBA draft, or guys that are going to leave and go get $2 million out of another school. These
Mhm.
are guys that have bought into what Izzo is preaching to them, and look how it's working out. It's fantastic. They haven't lost since Maui, and I brought this up to you before. Since they put Trey Holloman in the starting lineup, they're undefeated. They
Yeah.
haven't lost. I mean, it's fantastic, the coaching job that Izzo's doing, really getting these guys to buy into that hard-nosed, tough mentality basketball. And just like you said, you have 5 or 6 guys on this roster right now that are putting up 8, 9 to 10 points. It is such a balanced scoring team that, I mean, it's almost hard to beat, especially when you're at home. When you're playing in the zone, like they're not gonna they aren't gonna lose. That place gets crazy. And watching them play against Illinois and basically shut down a team that has some of the best freshmen I'd say in the country, they're gonna go in the first round.
Yep.
Like they're one of their best freshmen. I don't want to botch his name, but I'll just say his first name, Kasparis. Like he played 9 minutes and he fouled out. That was a guy that was averaging well over 10 points a game.
Mhm.
Everyone was saying like this is a guy who could be a dark horse to be a top 20 pick in this coming draft, and you held him to 3 and 5 fouls.
Mhm.
Like you don't see that. And like I think people look at this Illinois team, they see like, oh, they're 13-5, 5-3 in conference. They are a lot better than that 13-5 record.
Oh
They
yeah.
have had a lot of games where it could go either way.
Mhm.
And sadly, this is another one that didn't fall their way. But I
Yeah.
think that's kind of a credit to Michigan State and what they're doing. And I see them as being they got to be the top dog to win the Big Ten now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think to your point about Illinois, they tested themselves early. Underwood did a great job at that, right? You look at you're playing Alabama. That's
Yep.
a tough game. You're playing Arkansas, and you beat Arkansas. That's a tough game. And then you have several other. I mean, Northwestern. You lose at Northwestern in overtime at the time. That doesn't look great. Look what they just did to Michigan, right? I mean,
Yep.
look what Michigan State went in there and was up by 20 at half. That game ended up being like a 5-point game at one point. Like
Yep.
playing at Northwestern is not easy, and they test themselves early. You played number 1 Tennessee, lost by 2, right? And that was when
Yep.
Tennessee was playing. I mean, at that time, that's December 14th. That was the peak of Tennessee playing spectacular basketball.
Yep.
So this Illinois team has tested themselves so well. And like you're saying, I mean, Kasparis Yakachonis, I believe, is a spectacular player. He's top tier. He's, I mean, a 6'7", 6'8" guard that can get to the rim, can shoot the three, and he creates for others so well. But this Michigan State team, it's just the IQ, I think, that really stands out to me. And it's everybody, right? Frankie Fiddler coming off the bench as your I mean, he subs in with like 12 minutes to go in the first half every game, right? So he's, I
Yep.
mean, your third, fourth guy off the bench, and he's in the game, and he's making us in a super intelligent play to foul Yakachonis out by coming off of a ball screen. Yakachonis is trailing very quickly and just stops and shoots a pull up jumper, and Yakachonis runs right into him. Right, that's an intelligent basketball play, and this entire team is just making basketball plays like that. And I think the thing that you're mentioning is nobody's going to be a first round pick. Nobody's going to go seek $2 million a year.
Mm-hmm.
Look at what like Mick Cronin's saying when he's over at UCLA, saying, I'm coaching egos.
Yep.
You know how difficult that is. Tom Izzo is not coaching egos. If you have an ego, you're not in the program anymore. Right.
Yep.
I mean, I think even like a Xavier Booker's a perfect example of a guy that probably could have an ego, right? If he played for a
Mm-hmm.
coach that didn't basically beat it out of him, he'd have an ego, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's a top recruit, comes in, struggles a little bit. That's the type of dude that gets upset. Instead, he's coming off the bench right in the second year and still just battling for every minute that he gets.
Yep.
And so I think that this entire team is just egoless. They play good, fluid basketball. They don't care who scores. If it's Frankie Fiddler's night, cool. If it's Jaden Aiken's night, cool. If it's Jace Richardson's night, cool. If Xavier Booker's going to have a good night, if Cohen Carr's going to have, it doesn't matter. Nobody cares. And that's what I think kind of sets this Michigan State team apart, is that it might hurt them in the long run of maybe not having a definite closer, but I think that they have enough guys that could be closers. You go to whoever's got the hot hand. You don't have a Tyson Walker every game. This is going to be your guy, right? Cassius Winston, no matter what, we want it in his hands at the end of the game. No, maybe this game, hey, look, Richardson's 6 of 8 from the floor. We're going to go to him. So I think this Michigan State team is fun to watch. I would agree they have to be the team to beat here in the Big Ten.
Yeah, I mean, you look at, like you just said, you really don't know who's going to be that lead guy for Michigan State besides Jane Akins, but most of the time, there's always going to be that one player, whether it be in the starting five or coming off the bench, that's going to give you a great game. That's going to give you 10-plus points, and it's going to ultimately get you over that hump. And I think, like we talked about earlier with Trey Holloman, it was him.
Mm-hmm.
It was him. You had Trey Holloman put up 17 points, and he did it on 9 shots.
Yeah,
and he made 7 out of 8 free throws. Like, he played great basketball. And you look at the bench, like you brought up Frankie Fiddler, had 11 points off the bench. Cohen Carr had 11 points off the bench, made a 3-pointer, shot 4 or 6 from the field. He gets you up and down the floor. He had another alley-oop dunk yesterday. Hey, it's fantastic what he can do with how athletic. I mean, you see some of these guys off of the bench, insanely athletic basketball players. They're just raw. They just got to get the talent there. They already have the athleticism.
Yeah.
Trust me, once they figure it out, once Cohen Carr can figure out, all right, maybe I know I can not consistently, but I can shoot the three and have a little bit of, a little bit of confidence in my shot. Xavier Booker coming off of the bench. And then you throw in a really good freshman point guard and Jace Richardson off the bench as well.
Yeah.
I mean, those are 3 guys that I guarantee you by the end of their careers here at Michigan State will be 3-4-year guys that will start. And they will be your guys that will take over for guys like Trey Holloman, Jeremy Fears, Jaden Akins. And that's what Michigan State does. And that's what I love about their program. It's not built on one and done or 2-year guys. It is on guys that are going to give you 3 to 4, and they play team basketball. They don't care if they don't put up over 10 points in a game, because guess what? You got to win. You're looking at 16-2. You're 7-0 in conference. You're top 15 team in the country. And I think that's what I love the most about, a team, especially in the Big Ten, because I think that is Big Ten basketball, and that is Izzo basketball.
Yeah. Well, I think the perfect game to me that just explains exactly what this Michigan State team is the Minnesota game, right? You look at you put up 90 points against Minnesota. Your leading scorer is Cohen Carr with 12. 90 points, and your leading scorer has 12, and you out-rebound them 39-27. That's what Michigan State's been doing this year. You just faced Illinois, who is, I mean, the best, I believe, statistically the best rebounding team in the nation coming into the game yesterday on Sunday. And you got out-rebounded like terribly in the first half. I think you gave up 8 or 9 offensive rebounds in the first half, and you're tied going into halftime. How? Right? Because it's just balanced, right? You play tough defense. You're giving up 8 or 9 offensive rebounds, and you're giving up 36 points in a half. That's insane. You should not, if you're giving them 8 or 9 more opportunities, right? You should not be holding them to 36 and a half. So this team, they played tough defense. And I just really quickly, final point here is I want to touch on Jeremy Fears, because this dude has a redshirt freshman, obviously last year, right? Gets shot over Christmas break, gets the medical red shirt. He is a spectacular leader. He is the epitome of a Tom Izzo point guard, I think. He is exactly what you want. He is an on-the-floor coach. As a 19-year-old with 3 more years of eligibility after this year, which is crazy. He is an on-the-court coach that gets everybody into the positions they need to be in, and is on the court to put people in the position to score. He makes everybody on the court significantly better. And I think to your point about Trey Holloman, that's what makes Trey Holloman a little bit better, right? Holloman isn't relied on to be the guy, hey, you need to get us into our offense, get everybody where they need to be. No, you can have the creativity to do whatever you'd like to do, right? Maybe attack the rim a little bit more, because you don't need to be setting up the offense. So that's my final point here about Michigan State. This team's going to be really fun to watch. And again, we continue to say it, Michigan State home against Michigan, the final game of the season, is looking and trending towards being a massive, massive game for maybe 1 seed implications for Michigan State and maybe the Big Ten championship. or regular season championship. So we'll move on here from Michigan State. We talked about them and Auburn here. Let's talk about a dark horse team here. This is a team that does not get a ton of hype, and it's the St. John's Red Storm. These guys, I mean, playing under Rick Pitino here, they have lost 3 games all year. They're cracking into the top 25 here for the first week as of Monday afternoon. They've lost 3 games by a total of 5 points. Those 3 losses are to Baylor, who's playing good basketball.
On a last-second 3.
On a last-second 3 in double overtime,
Yep.
right? And so that's a game that you're winning on and then a last-second 3 at Creighton by 1 point, and then to Georgia by 3 points. Those are all 3 very quality teams, and by a combined 5 points. This St. John's team is flying extremely under the radar, and I just think it's fun to watch Pitino start to ramp these guys up here. You got a guy like RJ Lewis Jr., who I think is playing great basketball, right? He's taking care of the ball. I think that's one thing that I like to see is at a high usage rate, are you turning the ball over? Under 2 turnovers a game. That's something I really like to see, right? They're not even clipping from 3, and that's the fun thing about this team is they're not somebody that's going to come out and they're going to light you up from 3. They're not an Alabama or a Kentucky or even like with the way that Duke's been playing as of late. No, they're not. But what they are going to do is they're just going to play great spread out basketball, 4 guys averaging double figures. It's led by RJ Lewis Jr., but they have a lot of scoring options, and they're just going to get to the rim. I love what they do inside the paint.
Yeah, I mean, this team is almost brand new.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everybody heard it last year with what Rick Pitino would say in post-game press conferences. He said he said this is the worst year of basketball he's ever coached in his life. He said he hated everything about it. Wanted it. It almost made him want to start drinking again, even though he gave it up for the New Year's. I mean, he said he hated it. And I don't blame him. Those weren't his guys, and everybody usually knows that. It's hard to get your guys in right away. It really is, I mean, especially when you're coming from a mid-major program. You are a storied coach. People get that, but people don't really want to go to St. John's. And they don't. But you look what he's been able to do with this team. Like you said, they have 4 guys averaging 10 plus. They got another guy coming off the bench who has not averaging 9. They're a top 10 rebounding team in the nation.
Yep.
They only gave up 66 a game, and they put up 81. Like, this is a team, and they have enough veteran presence. I think it's another team, like you said, under the radar with a veteran presence. I mean, they have a guy in Kadari Richmond who, for Seton Hall last year, was an absolute stud. He was he was up for running a Big East Player of the Year.
Yep.
Like, he took that Seton Hall team deep into NIT. This is a team, and they haven't even unlocked his potential yet either. It's a guy that was averaging 16, 17 points a game last year. He's only averaging 11.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a guy that struggled at the beginning of the year. St. John's hasn't lost a game at home. Both games they lost were in the Bahamas.
Yeah.
And we're by a combined 4 points. And then you go on the road, Big East game, and you lose at Creighton, who hasn't been great this year, but not by any means a bad team.
No.
So, I mean, when I look at it, I think if St. John's continues to do this, they keep battling, and they somehow win the Big East, I wouldn't be surprised, because I think with a Rick Pitino at the helm, it's hard not to see this team succeed. And I think if they can keep on this trend, they're at least a Sweet 16 team, possibly Elite 8 if they get the right draw.
Yeah. No, I mean, what I like about the St. John's team is the defensive efficiency and the rebounding. And I think that's one that, to me, really stands out. You look at their steals to turnover ratio is nearly 1. Nearly even on not even turnover. Like you're winning the turnover margin. It's the steals to turnover margin. And that's something that stands out to me. And that's something that typically, you see that come March, right? You see that help you come March when you're a good rebounding team. If you're giving yourself second opportunities, if you're not giving up second chance opportunities, that's what really, really helps you. Even if you're having a bad shooting day, you can get 2-3 shots in a possession. That's going to help you a lot, right?
Yep.
You look at the ability to force turnovers, right? When the stakes are high, could you have guards that can speed them up? Kadari Richmond can speed up anybody in the country, right? Maybe not anybody, but just about anybody in the country. Spectacular defender. You look at 3 of your top 4 scorers are all averaging over a steal and a half a game, right?
Yep.
So your best offensive players also play spectacular defensive basketball as well. I mean, they're a top 5 defensive efficiency team in the nation here. I mean, looking at who is above them, Duke, Tennessee, Houston. How's that for some company right there? I mean, St. John's, this is not a team. I mean, Creighton's a good basketball team. You held them to 57.
Yep.
Right? I mean, that's I mean, this is not a it's not like you're playing like, okay, yeah, you're holding whoever it is to, Seton Hall to 51. Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
I can understand maybe you're looking at that like, oh, but you're holding Villanova to 68, right? How about that? Right. And you're playing against Eric Dixon, who's been absolutely spectacular this year. He's got 18 points on 19 field goal attempts. Right.
Yep.
So you're playing defense and you're able to shut down whatever the other team wants to do. That's the thing that kind of stands out to me about this St. John's team is that anything that they want to do defensively, they're able to do. Even Baylor, okay, you gave up 99, you played an extra 10 minutes, you played another quarter of basketball. Like,
Yeah.
So this St. John's team, I think, is a real dark horse, and they don't have big names, but what they do have is elite defensive efficiency, and that's what always wins championships down the stretch. Is it will be defense, and they don't rely on the three. Both of those will really help them down the stretch.
I think we're really going to figure out what this St. John's team is made of with their schedule in February.
Mm-hmm.
I'll rattle off their schedule real quick for February. It's at home against Providence, at home against Marquette, on the road at UConn, on the road at Villanova, home against Creighton,
Mm-hmm.
at DePaul, and home against UConn again. I mean, that's a good 8-game stretch right there where you're going to figure out what you're made of.
Yep.
We're going to figure out if they can get through this. I'd say at least with 5 wins, 4 or 5 wins, you at least stay at the 500, maybe even go a game or two above it. I think they're a legit team.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're a legit team. They're going to catch their stride, and we're going to see them maybe not win the Big East regular season title, but I think they'll be at least top 2, top 3.
Yeah.
I think they'll be right up there with Marquette and UConn till the final weeks of the season. And then I think we could see a major coming out party for the Big East tournament, and I could see them winning it all, winning the whole Big East tournament, and possibly getting. I could see them as like a 6 or a 7 seed come
Mm-hmm.
March, and I think they'll be a really dangerous seed.
Well, the thing that I think in the Big East tournament, to your point, is that like when you see Big East tournament play, right, in any conference tournament play, it's what 3, 4, 5 straight games with a day, or 5 straight days with a game. So when you have a team like St. John's that plays hounding defense, that if you want to get a bucket, just 2 points this game, you have to work your ass off for 20 seconds to get 2 points every single time down the court. And offensively, that's exhausting, right? So if you come up against a team like UConn, maybe, who's really not all that deep, right? UConn's only 8, 9, maybe 9 deep.
Yep.
That could be concerning. You come up against a team like Marquette, right? And if it's day 3, day 4 of a game, I mean, that makes it really, really difficult to play against a defense as strong as St. John's. And maybe it's St. John's defense that gives, right, on day 3 or 4, right? Depending on who's the better conditioned team. But man, if they play defense like they have been, trying to beat that, to score on a defense like that, well, on day 3 or 4 of playing a game every day is going to be just brutal. I mean, and you see the same thing too in the second round of March Madness, right? If you can win first round, playing a game 48 hours later, it's also difficult. So no, the St. John's team I think is going to be really fun. They are one of my dark horses to get to that Elite 8 level, depending on what seeding they get. I mean, I'm really interested. If they get me like a 5 seed and you get a good matchup against a 4 seed that maybe it just doesn't have necessarily the pieces, like I'm thinking like maybe like a Purdue, right? You get Purdue as a 4 seed, you give me St. John's as a 5 seed. I really like that St. John's matchup there. So it's just going to be interesting to see how that turns out.
I'll tell you what happened to Gonzaga? What actually happened with Gonzaga?
It's interesting because they're so inconsistent for me. That's the problem.
It's crazy.
Like you go from, I don't understand. I don't understand how a team can be like so quality one game and so just absolutely terrible another. Like you lose back-to-back against Oregon State and Santa Clara, right? You lose to UCLA earlier in the year. You lose to UConn, but then you're taking Kentucky to overtime, right? And you're beating Indiana by 16, right? Like, but that's the day after you lose to West Virginia in overtime. Like, it's consistently like playing well, not playing well, playing well, not playing well. And with a guard like Nemhard, this is the thing that's confusing me. With a guard like Nemhard, who's so good, he's leading the nation in assists.
Yeah,
Who's
not
so good at
9.7 a game.
yeah, he's so good at setting other people up. I don't understand why you are still struggling as much as you are. That's my thing. Is I think Mark Few's has some real things to solve, and I don't know what. That's some hype. I'm sure he doesn't either if they're still losing games like this, right? Is why are you struggling to win games? I mean, I think it's on the defensive side of the floor. I think that's where it starts, right? You're giving up 99 points to Santa Clara at home. That's a problem, right? This Santa Clara team is not a team that should be putting up 99 points against you. And maybe that's where you have to start. Maybe that's the root of all your problems. But I mean, this like I'm looking right now at the Santa Clara team. Their game before that, they played at Loyola Marymount and scored 54 points.
Yeah,
they scored another 45 points on Gonzaga than they did on Loyola Marymount. I mean, that's a problem to me.
It doesn't make any sense. I mean, they're top 5 in points. They're top 5 in points per game. They're top 5 in assists per game. And then you just look at the rebounds per game. They're 40th, and then they give up 73 points a game. They just don't try on the defensive end at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I get it. That's kind of always been Gonzaga. They've always been that AAU type team that tries to run up and down the floor. But with with them joining the Mountain West and like all of this conference alignment, or not Mountain West, they joined in the Pac-12, right?
I believe they're in the Pac-12 now.
The Pac-12. Sorry, they're joining the Pac-12. They're going to be getting into a bigger, more depth conference, and we're already starting to see it now with the WCC. I mean, they're tied for 3rd in the WCC.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're 14-6, and like they have the talent to be a really good team, but every game's not a cakewalk anymore. And I think we're slowly starting to see that now, and Mark Few's gonna have to start figuring some stuff out because this isn't gonna last for much longer.
No, it's not. And I'm curious to see where they end up in the tournament, right? Can you figure it out at all when it comes time for the WCC tournament and come out on top like you always do? But can you do that?
Exactly.
Just interesting to see what they and even kind of to stretch that out is what do you do in the NCAA tournament, right? If you get a draw as a 8 seed and you're playing against South Carolina as a 9 seed.
Yeah.
How can you handle an SEC team or no?
So they currently don't have any wins against ranked teams. Obviously, they've beaten 2 ranked teams, but they are no longer ranked. Like their best win right now is Baylor, and Baylor just dropped out of the top 25 because they lost at home last night to TCU, a bad TCU team to say the least. That was 9-7. Like they don't have any good wins, so I think I'm kind of worried is are they going to fall? Are they going to see themselves into the trap of what St. Mary's has fallen into sometimes when? Maybe St. Mary's was, I remember a few years back, they were 28-5 and didn't make the tournament.
Yeah.
They were left out on the bubble. If Gonzaga doesn't get any quality wins, let's say they lose both games at St. Mary's this year. And okay, you might beat them in, let's say you get them in like the semis of the WCC, you beat them, then you go on to lose to a team like, let's say Washington State or Santa Clara in the finals. Are you going to get in still just because your name's Gonzaga?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what I'm kind of interested to see is like how many wins or losses can they stack up until the committee's like, all right, we can't just put you in because your name's Gonzaga anymore.
Yeah, I'm looking up right now their current like quad records right now because in quad 1 they're 2-5, quad 2 they're 2-1. They're currently 4-6 in quads 1 and 2. Right, you're 10-0 in quads 3 and 4. That's great.
Yeah,
but you have 4 quad 1 and quad 2 wins. There are a lot of teams with significantly better resumes than that.
Yeah.
And that's the concerning thing. You also have your quad 2 wins. You have Arizona State and Indiana. Both of those and it was home and neutral, so it's not like it's an away game. Those could very easily end up being.
Arizona State's probably going to drop to a 3.
Right. Those could very easily end up being quad 3, in which also Santa Clara is, that's a quad 2 loss. That could end up being a quad 3.
Yeah,
it's unlikely
there's
Santa Clara's
13-7
going to jump a little bit now, right? But that could end up being a quad 3 loss, right? So there's this is not a good look for this team right now. And I mean, even like you look at your quad one wins are against Baylor and San Diego State. San Diego State was on the road, so that's likely to stay as a
They'll
quad
probably say
one.
as a Q1.
Yeah, but Baylor playing in the Big 12, that could drop to a quad two, right?
Yeah, I mean, if they continue to, I mean, they're playing okay basketball right now, but they had no reason to lose that game yesterday, and
Right. They just lost
all that
yesterday.
does is hurt Gonzaga in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, they could very easily. I could very easily see a pathway in which they are a 1-5 quad one team here, and I'm looking at their opportunities for quad one wins. You have away at St. Mary's, which is a very difficult game.
Yeah,
and then you have, as of right now, Santa Clara and San Francisco away is quad one. As of right now, those are your two final games of the year. Did they end quad one? Maybe. But also, you lost to Santa Clara at home. So I'm not going to sit here and say you're going to go beat them on the road.
Yeah, exactly. So, especially in a game that late in the year when it's going to mean a lot more to them than it really does to you, especially with being at their place.
Yes. So, and then you have home against St. Mary's. So you have two games against St. Mary's. You have at Santa Clara and San Francisco. You have one home opportunity to have a quad one win for the rest of your season. That means if you can't win on the road, you can have 3 quad one wins. That is not a tournament resume.
Not at all.
I think you might, Mark Few. I hadn't looked at these quads yet, and this is fun to look at because it's starting to get me in the March Madness mood. Is what it's starting to do. But this is danger territory now for Mark Few because you look at the quad 4 games, right? You're the quad 3 or 4. If you lose any of those games,
you're going to be playing in the NIT.
Yes, yeah, it is.
And that's the one thing I think it kind of brings up with me is like all these blue blood programs that are like, well, we can schedule these early in the year games, these hard non-conference games, because we can afford to take a loss early because guess what, we can go get it in our conference play.
Mm-hmm.
Well, with Gonzaga, you're running out of opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
You're really running out of opportunities, and I think that's why. I mean, I don't blame them for scheduling the way they do out of non-conference, but what's the point of you playing a top 10 team in Baylor, then playing Arizona State, then playing at San Diego State, who was ranked at the time, playing against a West Virginia team who you lost to, who was ranked at the time, Indiana, who was ranked, Kentucky, who was ranked, UConn, who was ranked, UCLA, who was ranked. What's the point of doing that especially if you don't even have a good enough team to do it? Because now you're going to pigeonhole yourself in the WCC to where you only have so many opportunities to get an at-large bid if you don't somehow pull out that WCC tournament championship game.
Yeah, no, I will say, just to play devil's advocate a little bit, I think playing all those games gives you opportunities for quad one wins. Whereas, we're looking at their conference schedule. You don't have opportunities really for quad one wins all that much. I'm looking at Santa Clara and San Francisco as of right now are quad 2 teams on the road though. Both teams are within 20 spots of moving into quad 2. So, or moving into quad 3. So that's a quad 2 game. Yeah. You get what I'm saying. So there's not a ton of opportunities. You take St. Mary's out, right? Like in St. Mary's, Gonzaga is always a battle, no matter where it's at. If you go 1-1 against St. Mary's, okay, you have one quad 1 win. You're 1-1 in quad 1 there, right?
Yeah.
Where else are you guaranteed to get a quad 1 game, right? Whereas if you're playing any of these other schools, right, like an ACC, an SEC, a Big 10, a Big 12, Big East even, you're going to have, between 5 and 8 opportunities for quad 1 wins easy, if not probably more than that, because you get all those quad 2 away games. So I think that realistically, this Gonzaga team, I liked playing this tough schedule earlier. You just don't have room to go lose to Santa Clara. You don't have room to go lose to Oregon State, right? And that's what's concerning to me. But this has been long-winded, so we'll go ahead and start to wrap this up. But this is going to be really, really interesting to continue to track these
something
teams
to look at
as we move into February here in about a week and a half. So
yeah,
we are a week and a half away from February, and you know what's after February? March.
March, maybe the greatest month of the year.
You're damn right. So, but other than that, though, this has been a little bit long-winded about a couple teams, but that's all right. This has been the Sports Geeks podcast. They play, we talk. Thanks for watching, guys. Peace.
3 seconds at midcourt. Jenkins gives it to Jenkins for the championship. Catches, puts up a 3. Won't go. Rebound box. Back out to